Say 39.
Number 1.
39.
1.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18. 17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10.
9. 8.
7.
6. 5.
4.
3.
2.
1. It's time for mouthwash. Giddy up. Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty fresh take on politics. And wow, we have a really good show tonight, man. I'm telling you what, you're going to love this show. It's just so chill tonight. But we got a couple things to do before we get to that fine action. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap. A couple weeks ago, we had a show about the Marion County Fairgrounds. We had a guy come on, Jeremiah Teefball, and he made some claims. And I saw in the chat, there was a lot of people said, hey, where's the evidence to this? What kind of evidence is there? So, hey, at the bottom of the screen here, I'm going to put, you know what? He set up a drive. He set up a drive. And you can go look at all the little text messages. You can knock yourself out on that. I looked at some of them. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. But there's the address to that. And I will go ahead and share it in the comments there so you can look at it. You can see what you think. You could draw your own conclusion on what's going on there. And that's what we have. And so tonight's show, we're going to talk about marijuana, weed and all that stuff. And we're going to talk about how it's going to be legal or it's not going to be legal, or what are we going to do with it? And if it's safe, not safe. I'm sure we'll cover a lot of stuff. And we have some special conspiracy theory tonight. Lucy had me actually upload a video that hopefully I can get played because I'm going to push a couple extra buttons. But so without any further ado, I do see, I forgot to tell you, we're going to do live small talk. We're going to do live small talk. And I know it's like we have Mark come on all the time with his recorded small talk. But tonight we're going to have matters. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Mark on here. Let's see if I can do that without messing it all up. Hey, Mark Small, how you doing this evening?
I'm fine. Is my sound coming through?
Oh, yes, it is. It's very quite well. I just want to take a moment, Mark, to thank you for all of your small talks. I mean, we're at episode 98, and you've been on quite a few of them. And I just want to say I appreciate your professionalism. You always have the recording to me. You always ask me what the topic is. And, sometimes some of these right-wing heads explode from some of your comments. And I think that's just what we're going to call entertainment.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can dance. I could do some sleight of hand and everything, but it's fun. Now, right now, we're having problems with the computers here. And the cats are using my cell phone right now, Dorn. They're on some kind of chat thing. And if you want to know what's dangerous, let your cats learn writers. And because once they find that YouTube channel that has all the cat videos where the birds are coming right up next to the screen, and they've got a squirrel, they've got demonic squirrels, and the squirrels get right up to the screen and they know what they're doing with all those cats out there. And my cats will sit there and go, and now Delilah, who passed away a couple years ago, Delilah would try and get behind the screen. She'd be reaching for it. And so she didn't understand like the physics of the computer screen, but be that as it may.
It seems to be working well. So hey, let's do this live small talk. So what's your small talk for tonight, for this week, about marijuana legalization, or maybe weed in the church? What do you have? What do you have?
Okay, well, if you look at the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, it says you cannot. A Supreme Court case came down like years ago that said that you could not use a general defense like that to prosecution on a criminal trial, a case that you have a religious belief. Well, that had to do with somebody's belief and had to do with like a workers' comp case. Well, what happened was with the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, they kind of opened it up so that if people have sincerely held religious beliefs, they cannot be prosecuted for certain offenses. That's the argument. Now, here's the problem. We tried that here in Indiana. We argued it in court. We ran out of steam partway through because it was getting kind of expensive just for experts and everything, but also it was not going well. But if you look at the history of religion, drugs have been part of religion since religions started. If you look at religions that predate Judeo-Christianity, Hinduism, for example, started with, it was the peyote ceremony was in there too, darn. But soma was a drug that's mentioned in Hinduism. And that was like, people think that it might have been a type of magic mushroom. Other drugs have been involved in nearly every religion. It's something that's revelatory. So if you look at some of the Supreme Court cases that came down in the 70s and the 80s, said that, for example, peyote was recognized as a sacrament for certain of the indigenous peoples here in the United States. There was a very, very active psychoactive ingredient in stuff used by South American Indians in their worship. And so when you look at people looking for heightened awareness, that's been part of religion, and it's also been why drugs have been involved in religious ceremonies. Judeo-Christianity goes more towards alcohol because that's in the whole thing of transubstantiation when you're having communion. But what we're missing right now is that there's a basic idea that I can do with my body what I want to, as long as I'm not harming somebody else. And I can't think of anything that's more fundamental than a right to, I mean, I could be smoking a cigar right now. I wouldn't. I haven't had one for about 6 months. But that's legal, whereas marijuana is illegal. What's the difference? In terms of health, it's actually more beneficial to smoke marijuana. A lot of studies have been done. Another thing is we're wasting so much money having marijuana illegal because there's the enforcement mechanisms. We're paying for all the cops. And these arguments apply to drugs across the board. And I believe we really have to look at legalization of all drugs. That's what they did in Portugal over 20 years ago. All their metrics that we'd normally look at for like rise in crime or anything like that go towards use of drugs are the lowest in Europe, and they have legal drugs across the board. So if you look at marijuana, it's very good for people in a lot of ways. But alcohol probably is one of the more destructive drugs, yet it's perfectly legal. Tobacco, we even subsidize it because we want to make sure that farmers are not just plowing under crops. It was for a long time. I don't think they have so many subsidies now. But that's basically it. Now look at Indiana. We're behind the curve and the third area in terms of money that we lose is people get criminal records for possession of marijuana or for sale of small quantities of marijuana. And that costs us long run. Those people can't get jobs. Oh, you got a felony conviction. Well, it was for a pound of pot that I was taking to a party one time. I mean, it's really silly.
Wow, a pound of pot? I want to go to that party.
It was a real small party. It was just big joints. But if you look at also that's a long-term loss in terms of people being able to participate in the economy, and we're losing out on taxes. Now, the tax money wasn't as much as people thought it would be before legalization occurred. for recreational purposes in some of the states, but it's still significant. And so you take all this red ink from enforcement and people being in jail and health aspects and loss of tax revenue. And then you've got all the black ink coming in from the tax revenue. So for us not to have legalized marijuana right now is totally silly. Actually, it's beyond silly because so many lives are harmed from it being illegal. And you know, I did a debate one time at DePaul, and I said I had a hand-rolled cigarette behind my ear, and I said, if you people in the front row, if this were marijuana, this is illegal. If it's tobacco, it's legal. Are you being harmed in any way? And you couldn't even tell the difference. So those are the reasons why we should legalize. We should legalize all drugs, as we debated in college. I've been saying this for almost 50 years. I'm not that.
Yeah.
old.
Well, hey, I'm going to have to cut you off there because now people are starting to understand why I only give you 3 minutes.
Oh.
No, but very good. And again, I wanted to just bring you on live tonight and tell you how much I appreciate your professionalism on getting the clips to me and being game for all the shenanigans we do on here. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and play this here commercial this little commercial we got here for a little shindig we're having. I believe, Mark, you're coming to this Friday, right? 5:30. All right.
I am going to be there. So,
All
John,
right, well,
have a good one.
All right. On the other side, we'll have our guest. See you, Mark. Hey, I just wanted to take a moment to invite you to the Mars Hill Art Center this Friday at 5:30 to talk about the Marion County GOP. We're going to have Marion County GOP Joe Elsner come, and he's going to give a presentation on what is our next steps to improve the party in Marion County. This is going to be sort of a unifying meeting. So, but hey, it's not just for those that have been in the party, but this is for anyone that wants to get involved in what's going on in Marion County. This would be a great chance to get in the ground floor of what's up and coming. We expect a really good crowd at this. So, hey, just show up and see what it's about. Hey, it might be for you, might not be for you, but hey, you're welcome. And you'll be able to figure out what's going on and meet some of the candidates that ran last time. So anyway, we'll see you this Friday, 5:30 p.m. That'll give you plenty of time to go out and do your Christmas shopping after that, or go have some eggnog with your friends or whatever. So we'll see you this Friday. All right. All right. Oh, hey, panel, I hope you know you're on now. So I think I did a little change up. This is such a rehearsed show. We usually get on about 3 minutes before the show and talk about it and then go on the show. So I told him I was going to bring Jason on first, but no, I'm going to bring the panel on first. And then we're going to put Jason out here in the hot seat and see what he's got a fancy background just like Lucy does tonight. So they must have called each other. What are you wearing today? I'm going to wear my pink shirt. How about you? So Jason, we appreciate you for coming on. We're going to find out what the panel is, and we're going to get to you. So Tiffany, how are you this evening? And great job last week hosting. I felt like I was, sort of here, but not here, directing from Florida.
Thank you. John, nobody does it quite like you. Nobody does it like you. Nobody does it like Sarah Lee. So,
Yeah.
Just always happy to fill in for you when I can, but it's not the same without you. Not the same.
Well, that's so sentimental. Ed, how are you this evening? I did see Spirit Airlines driving around the airport. I didn't see any of the planes take off, but I saw a lot of taxiing. Is that how they roll?
Yeah, not very many people see Spirit Airlines take off. So, yeah, that's how they roll. But to answer your question, I'm feeling a little off. And I maybe not hear Mark Small say P. and all his whole jazz there. And I just may not be the same for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I know. Well, I didn't see the cats either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we may have to demand we see 3 cats all at one time in the screen. We may have to see that. So, Lucy, I see you have your looks like a cartoon behind you there of marijuana.
It is. look at it, isn't it? Now, I think Jason's background is a lot more beautiful than mine. Mine represents reality. His represents when you're actually using the product, what you actually see.
Well, that's what we do here on this show. We try to give all points of views, and that is one of our slogans. We respect all opinions, and we try not to make too much fun of any of them. So, but that's how it goes. So, Captain Jason Straw, USFAF Nurse Corp retired guy on our show tonight. Give us just a little bit of your background before I turn the grill on here and we start turning up the heat on the panel questions.
I'm a retired U.S. Air Force trauma nurse. I deployed twice to Afghanistan. First time was as a charge nurse of the Bagram Air Force Base ICU. And then the second time was as a critical care air transport nurse. I've done jobs for the the U.S. Air Force Surgeon General, General Green, when Australia sent their Deputy Surgeon General over. I got to escort them around for a week and introduce them to our training program with CCAT and some of our commanders and strategic partners in the military, and which allowed us to build further relationships for training. So my whole life has been about healthcare, helping people, volunteering. I've been in the medical field since '94. Before that, I did a couple of years of college. Then I ran out of money and joined the military. And so 2014, I got out. I've been advocating for veterans and cannabis ever since.
Wow. And you were on our show 96 episodes ago.
Oh, wow.
That was a long time ago. I believe you were on our second show, and we had you and Bill Levin on, and Bill Levin smoked a square cigarette, or is that what you call a square cigarette? He smoked that right on live on the air, and we're still here. We didn't get banned from the YouTube or nothing for that. So that was fun.
Well, they couldn't tell what it was.
Yeah, I know, but
smell-o-vision.
Yeah, I guess you didn't have to. You had to know, Bill. It wasn't a cigar, and if it ain't a cigar, it ain't a cigarette. If you know what I mean. So, well, one of our panelists. Do you want to start out with some questions here to get this show rolling? Raise your hand, or
I
Lucy,
have a question.
Go ahead.
My question is, how is everything going in Michigan? You are literally a medical refugee who was forced to leave the state of Indiana, taking your tax dollars and productivity with you because our governor is a jerk and he gets too much money from Eli Lilly. So how is it is it a more free state? Is it a less free state?
Well, for the most part, I feel like Michigan treats veterans far better than Indiana does. And we can take our grandchild out to a restaurant bar, and they can be there where the entertainment is. They're, just like Indiana used to be back in the 70s and 80s. But in Indiana, when they're like, oh my gosh, you got to think about where we can go eat because we just can't go anywhere and eat. So I really appreciate Michigan. I mean, every state has its advantages and disadvantages, but I'm off of 13 FDA drugs. I have stabilized my chronic kidney disease, stage 3. I have had one migraine here in Michigan in the last 2 years. So compared to Indiana, where the best I could do was have hemp CBD and bring it down to about 6 from the 20 that I was having every month, which made me permanently disabled and on SSDI and the VA, unable to do nursing duties like I used to do. So I found a new normal in my life here in Michigan, and I'm doing a lot better. I feel great, and I got a wonderful support network of my wife and a few friends. So yeah, I think if Indiana went legal now that I've had the taste of Michigan, we probably won't move back.
Jason, I have a quick question. And I didn't see show number 2, so I apologize. Can you tell us just a little bit about your background and how you ended up on so many meds and how now you're not on any?
Yeah, so my when I deployed the first time in 2009 to Bagram, there were burn pits, and it's stressful. We worked with kids, we worked with Taliban, we worked with the Afghani military forces, the NATO. So we saw all of it. One time I had a baby that was a preemie that would fit in my hand, and I had to adjust the intubation tube maybe a millimeter so that they could breathe correctly, because they were dying from lack of oxygen and the anesthesiologist was in the OR. So lots of stress, PTSD, anxiety, depression from the stuff that I saw, along with exposure to toxins, which gave me chronic bronchitis, irritated my irritable bowel symptoms, which I had in the 90s from the Army. So those are all the things that happened because of deployment. I had all these health issues that occurred. The second time, I was exposed to, we had an open sewer pit. It was so strong that you couldn't keep your eyes open. It burned so bad. And we lived right in that waft. So we tried to stay inside or run as fast as we could to a safe area that it wasn't burning your lungs and eyes. And that's why I ended up on all those medications, is because of my service-related injuries and disease process that being exposed to toxins and that stress caused.
Okay. Yeah, I got a separate, I'm going to jump in here. A question about, I hear all these stories of just mental, just all sorts of trauma. Are these wars worth what we're doing these days? I mean, I know that, many have fought and died for the freedom of our country, but are we on the right path with some of this stuff, or is it, what's your opinion on that?
Well, my personal belief is we should use diplomacy at the utmost before we even consider thinking about deploying for combat, because what I saw was absolutely horrific. We decimated a whole generation of people who served. These are honorable people who want to do the right thing. As far as knowing, should we have gone to war? Did they do everything they need to do beforehand? Do our policies lead us this way? I just didn't have enough. I don't have enough information to give you a good answer on whether we should be fighting wars. My personal opinion is I would like to see no wars fought, and for us to adjust our policies and how we treat people around the world. I think that would be much better for everybody. But I'm not the person negotiating with these other countries.
Yeah, it's like, well, everybody needs to smoke a little weed and chill, I guess it sounds like to me, and like just kick back and figure it out. So Ed, I see you up there in deep thought. I see you pondering something. What might you have?
He's thinking about chicken
No. One of the things that hit me with Mark Small is Mark Small, ran on and spoke a lot, but to me, it always comes back to the scheduling of drugs, right? And to me, I don't understand, and maybe Jason can touch on it from his, research and what he's done. But to me, again, it sticks on that point where Schedule I drugs, where marijuana is at the federal level, are not supposed to have any acceptable medical use, but yet state after state is approving it for medical use, and we have people being prescribed it. So explain to me how this doesn't mix. Like where are we lost at here?
Yeah, so the first thing you got to look at is what Nixon did back in the early 70s. We have an international treaty, which the U.S. rammed through the UN and the World Health Organization. So in that treaty, it stated for temporary purposes, we're going to schedule cannabis as the highest category of restriction. They use a different numbering system in the UN and the World Health Organization, but the U.S., it's a Schedule I, and you're right. Schedule I is supposed to have no medical value whatsoever. 2 is it's highly addictive. So those are kind of your two categories that you look at. It goes from 1 to 5, and then there's a botanical class. So cinnamon, nutmeg,
turmeric.
Turmeric's another one, maca root. All those things kind of fall into that category. And that category, you don't really need any scientific evidence to use a plant-based medicine. All you need is anecdotal evidence that says that it might work, and then you titrate to effect, like we do with most FDA drugs. So most drugs you start at one point because that's what the evidence says, and then you either titrate down or you titrate up to get the effect that you want. And this is what we did in the ICU. I got really good at it. Thank God for the training that I've had and the knowledge I developed. Because that's one of the questions that keep getting asked at the State House. Well, where's the evidence? What's the starting dose? Because they want, like a Zofran pill for nausea, 4 milligrams, 8 milligrams. Those are kind of the dosages that most people will start at, and they have a max dose and what's safe. So the UN and the World Health Organization actually moved cannabis down to what we would call a Schedule 2, saying that it does have medical value. It should be studied. And as far as the international treaty goes, a Schedule 1 can be studied openly. And they're allowed, if you find that you have medical value for cannabis, you're allowed to make it legal in your country and not violate the treaty. Canada did that, which kind of set dominoes for a whole bunch of other countries. The U.S. is considering these things. Actually, President Biden ordered that it be reviewed because the DEA has the authority to change the scheduling, and the president can influence that. And that was a power given by Congress. So when we look at the scheduling, Schedule 1 in the U.S., it's very limited research, if any. You can't get any hard evidence the way that they've been doing it, which they're trying to. Congress has been trying to pass laws to make it easier. We've passed a law to study it. We're looking, like President Biden's looking to trying to have them look at the evidence to change the scheduling. I'm hoping that they go with at least a Schedule 3 or lower, or deschedule it altogether would be ideal. I think that would be the best option, and I'll put some regulations in there. Do some studies, put some regulations in for safety. So did that answer your question, Ed?
Yeah, I understood it, but yeah, it's very good because I didn't know all about that scheduling stuff. But so that takes me, I heard a couple things in there. We talk about, the federal level. I didn't know that our country was sort of in a treaty thing. So our governor says, hey, until they make it federally legal, we're not going to look at it here. And then also we need to do a study. I'm like, I know dudes have been studying this for 70 years and they seem to be fine.
But the funny thing about a study is that if it's not regulated, it's hard to tell what dose. And this is truly one of those medicines where it's just the individual, you decide how much you need. So that's the other thing about doing a study is that there's too much variance in, what 5 milligrams or 100, how people are going to react. So it truly is, to your point, Jason, about individual titration. One of the things, and it's like, I just really wish that the medicinal side, that, some of those anecdotal stories, that people would really put stock in them and believe them when, kids are able to get off seizure meds, people are able to get off seizure meds, people to get off pain meds and opioids. I just think that if you can transition from something that the pharmaceutical companies are making and you have to lie, steal, or cheat to get it, and if you can transition to something that's got better evidence and it's going to be healthier and safer for you, it is my hope that at least here in Indiana, we would have some medicinal use allowed.
Can we just cut to the bottom line? I don't mean to interrupt you, Jason. I'm going to give the mic back to you. But the fact of the matter is in the first minute or so you were out, you explained the whole thing. You got off 28 medications, 13 medications. How much revenue does that represent times how many millions of people would get better on this medication? I think we all know the answer. It's lining Holcomb's pockets and every other politician. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I don't know, because were you on any generics or were you on branded meds?
Well, it was through the VA. So some of it was name brand, some of it was generics. They have contracts that change every year. One of the things that you said about the dosing, they do have great studies out there in Israel and Europe that have, it's the type of studies that we need to get things passed through the FDA, but the FDA can choose to only look at U.S. studies. So they can ignore the rest of the world studies, which gives them the hard evidence so they could use it to as an application to make medical marijuana an actual treatment in the U.S. Now, as far as titration, individuals can be up to 25-fold difference in their response to THC. So I'm a lightweight. I'm towards the lower end. My wife is a lot higher. I kind of just look at an edible and I can get high. She takes 2 of them and it puts her out for the night. So you're right. It also has to do with nutrition. And there's a lot of education about nutrition that I do with my wife's customers who buy her CBD, because it won't work if you don't have the right nutrition in you too.
Yeah, that's
what's the right nutrition?
Very well. Vitamin D is a good one to start with. Make sure your levels are good, and then that allows you to absorb magnesium. Vitamin D and magnesium help with the process in the liver. You get higher if you're better nourished with less. So it's more effective and you're not wasting it as much. And I use B vitamins too, which helps you produce the enzymes in your liver. Now, one of the funny things is we can nourish our endocannabinoid system by taking omega-3s, because our body makes anandamide and 2-AG. Those are our 2 endocannabinoids, which fuel our system. So if we're eating healthy and we're getting our nutrients in, our liver can process these substances, and your endocannabinoid system is healthy, it helps you deal with a lot of stress. It regulates everything. They've been looking for the master gland forever. Well, it's not a master gland, it's a master system called the endocannabinoid system. This is crucial. And if you have a deficiency in it from the pollution, the stress, not being nourished, not exercising, not having joy in your life. Like some people get joy from singing and going to church. All those things can activate your endocannabinoid system. So when it's run down, then you start running into problems like possibly MS or Parkinson's or 190 some different GI problems, which I have several of those. We don't live in America in a stress-free lifestyle. It is very difficult. Cannabis allows you to reduce that stress, build yourself back up, balance your body out so you can deal with whatever you have to deal with in our society.
That's
that all makes tremendously good sense to me. Why? So what do you think the real big holdup is with one? Let's start at the federal level and then let's move down to the states. I mean, some states like Colorado jumped right in there, but unfortunately the FDIC, the banking system, wouldn't let them do this. So they had this big bad problem of having too much cash on hand. I mean, it just seems like the cart's way out in front of the horse on this.
Yeah, the federal government should have legalized and put in regulations, and this would have solved a lot of problems. You're right. They're kind of doing it backwards. We allowed the states to have the right to legalize, but we didn't provide them guidance. We didn't provide them the tools that they need for the state and the businesses. So not only is the federal government hurting the states, which they were trying, I think, to help in their backwards way of doing things, but it's hurting businesses and growth. And cannabis has been one of the top growers of the economy as far as business goes in the country for the last few years. Leaps and bounds. They're growing and jumping, which is catching the attention of a lot of people. Even conservative Republicans are looking at this going, oh my gosh, we know that it helps the economy in the states that are legal. They know it. They're not arguing that anymore. They're not arguing, oh, this or that. Oh, well, you have a higher crime rate. Well, you're having a higher crime rate because you got $1 million sitting in that dispensary of cash. You're not doing electronic transfers. So the federal government has to take care of the banking, and they have to take care of the scheduling to help start take care of the banking. So it's interwoven into everything in our society federally. Now, you talked about the state of Indiana. I've dealt with a lot. The federal government, I watch it. I hear people. I follow NORML and a few other groups. and they give me the information that I need to know. The state, I think, has a lot more ability and authority, and through the years, I've pointed out some powers that different branches of state government could enact, like Governor Holcomb could pardon anybody. And essentially, he could tell he's in charge of the Indiana State Troopers, which they're one of the groups of police that arrest the most people for coming across the border just trying to get their medicine. So he could tell them, we're going to deprioritize it. Just let them off with a warning. Don't worry about arresting them and wasting our tax dollars in your efforts. You focus on the hardened crime, the murderers, the rapists, the child molesters. Go after them. Do research and track them down, the detective work. And we'll just let the people have that right. The governor could do those things. Now, the legislative body, I've been to a lot of hearings, presented a lot of evidence. This last summer study, I was very hopeful because everybody, Republicans and Democrats who were up there in that committee, were asking the right questions. And I think Justice Swanson put together an amazing team. And the piece that he was missing was the physician. Well, I got a physician who said, I want you to research about alcoholism, tobacco, and the opioid crisis. Type up a report. I'll review it. And if I like it, then we'll submit it to the summer study. So I did that. I found out alcohol is the third leading cause of preventable death in the United States. Up until a year or two ago, alcohol deaths outweighed opioid deaths in Indiana. It cost over $4 billion a year to deal with alcoholism since 2017 for the state of Indiana. Opioid deaths are getting there. What's the solution? Well, one of the solutions is medical cannabis, both CBD from the hemp plant and medical marijuana. These things have been shown to help reduce opioid addiction, opioid overdoses, alcoholism, withdrawal. It treats withdrawal. My wife and I created a PowerPoint presentation that we presented to an addiction clinic. Cannabis is a harm reduction tool. It works. And so when you start looking at these projects, cannabis has a piece in a lot of things, a lot of working parts that can improve society, reduce waste, create jobs, improve health. And the state of Indiana summer study looked at all of those. They gave them hard evidence from around the country. The judiciary chair for Michigan, I believe it was the House side, said, yes, cannabis is great at bringing in capital to the state. And we haven't seen any real hard evidence since we've legalized in 2008, contradicting, there's no bad side as far as they were concerned that they could really point to. It was just, we have a financial benefit. Now, they're not looking at people like me. They don't ask us, is there a medical benefit? They have the program and they kind of just ignore it and they don't do studies, which is what we need as universities and groups to do studies on cannabis.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who would volunteer. Like, yeah.
And my wife and I, my wife and I are, so the University of Michigan's anesthesiology department is doing a cannabinoid and cannabis study. And my wife and I are public advisors to the university on that study, and they plan to have multiple. So this first round, we're just reaching out to veterans to get their opinion on, are you thinking about using cannabis as a treatment? Are you using cannabis? How is it working for you? So this is laying the groundwork for future studies, but they got to start getting the data and getting people that they can reach out to do the study. And so going back to the summer study, I thought with the doctor's testimony, which it took me 2 weeks to get it into the official record after the hearing. They left them out. And I started publicizing it on social media. And then within a few days, they had it up. So I don't know if it was they didn't want to put in the physician's positive response, which showed all the savings and the improvements in quality of life. Because he talked about end-of-life care too, which is cannabis is phenomenal for that. And ketamine's great too. I talked to a pulmonologist who does hospice care that I served with in Alaska, and he said, I use ketamine for all my hospice patients. Small amounts, you got to learn how to do it so you're not knocking them out. You just want them to be comfortable. And it goes back to titration and learning about the drugs. And in Indiana, we just don't do it. The policies are bad. Even Marinol, which is federally legal since 1985, is a Schedule III medication. And Marinol is like 97% Delta 9 THC. It's legal. Delta 9 is legal in the United States as a pharmaceutical, and it's a lightly controlled substance.
What is it indicated for? What's it approved for?
So the original studies was for AIDS wasting and nausea from chemo for cancer patients. But they have off-labeled uses for chronic pain, fibromyalgia, MS. So those are things that are not approved for, but it's under investigation that doctors can write for it if they're allowed to. Now, most doctors I've found out, if you take medical insurance or government insurance, you can only use Marinol for the two indications that the federal FDA says. A lot of doctors who are prescribing Marinol are actually doing cash only, so they don't have the restrictions and the regulations from the insurance companies telling your doctor what they can and can't do. And I believe that's part of the problem is you have administrators saying, well, we don't believe this is in the best interest.
Well, it's like that. I work in pharma, and it's like that for a lot of meds. Like if you go in and like before the GLP-1s were indicated for like weight loss, there's only for diabetics with type 2 diabetics. You know what I'm saying? So, there are ways to get around it. And the FDA, I mean, they're supposed to protect us. But what I think is most disappointing is like the medicinal uses of marijuana. And I think that sometimes, and you've got something that does all of this, you got to bring it down to one thing that they can wrap their heads around. And I think it's the medicinal use, because they'll get there with like the impact of the economy and all this other stuff. I think the medicinal route is one of those things because, in more affluent communities, sometimes children have too much money and they might try some extracurricular things. And understanding how people can come back from things that are highly illegal and will get them in a lot of trouble, and maybe be able to stabilize on, like marijuana, or also, people who have chronic pain and health issues like that. I just think that, there's benefit for keeping people focused on the medicinal uses. Go ahead, Lucy.
Can we, thank you, Tiffany. Can we stop living in a fantasy fairy tale where the FDA or any government 3-letter agency does anything to protect us, to help us, to do anything other than use us as milk cows for taxes? It's very clear why marijuana is illegal. First, it was clear when the FDA was started because it was a campaign against Black people. Totally. That's the whole reason they named it marijuana instead of cannabis. People were surprised when their medicine went away. They went to buy their cannabis and it had been banned. And it was completely a racial thing. So let's stop pretending that any of this is something other than what it is, which is a cash grab. You were talking about diabetes drugs. Metformin is actually, it's an isolation of goat's rue. Berberin is another thing that you can absolutely use, and that comes from the Oregon grape, by the way, from the roots, and also from golden seal. Both of those things also will increase your insulin resistance, lower your insulin resistance and lower your blood sugar and your A1C. Those are free. Well, if you grow them yourself, they're free. But let's face it, the only reason we're even having this discussion is because most people are absolutely insane. We have lived under an authoritarian, propagandizing governmental system that takes us from the time that we're infants and puts us through a system where we falsely believe that some people who got together and decided that they think they have authority over us somehow do. It's like I said last week and the week before that. You have to come out of Babylon. You have to stop paying attention to the politicians. The only reason these politicians can even enforce this crap is because we have LEO, law enforcement officers, and military, and people willing to take orders to suppress your rights. If the police stood down and actually stood for us and their fellow citizens, this would not be an issue. Every police officer that arrests somebody and puts them in jail for cannabis is guilty. Every judge that puts somebody in is guilty. Every prosecutor that puts somebody in is guilty. And every one of us that doesn't stand up for our fellow man and woman is guilty. So stop supporting the beast.
Preach it!
So,
Who is
I'm
that?
not
That was
disagreeing with you,
Dorn.
but it's the current situation that we're in. I mean, like, I think having conversations about how we can dismantle this and make this this avenue for healthcare available to people. I think that having this conversation is valid and it's worthy, and we're getting there. I mean, I can't correct anything from the past. I mean, you can't. This is our current situation. Even Jason talked about the reason we are where we are right now. It's the federal level, it's the UN, but we have to be able to understand how to dismantle it. That's the thing.
Get yourself some
I want to
seeds, roll
share
up some fertilizer, and throw the seed bombs into the yards of politicians, and let the cannabis grow in their yards, and let them be the ones that are prosecuted for growing it.
Oh, they won't be prosecuted
So
for it.
I have something in that same lane, but I wanted to share with Jason a story that I shared with the rest of the group last week, which was my great grandmother used to have a ranch, and she used to grow weed out in the corner of the ranch, and she would stuff it in alcohol, and she would use it to treat every type of ailment under the sun. And I told everybody, I have talked to people that struggled to have their grandkids come visit them. My great grandmother never struggled to have any of the kids come visit her. She always had visitors, and which touches on we're talking so much about legalizing for for purchase, right, and making money off of this. I also know, like, one of the things I've watched up in Michigan is them going back and forth and figure out like how much you can grow on your own personal property. So I don't want to dismiss that as well, because I would like to see like where you're at on that, and where Michigan stands as far as being able to grow on your own property. I know several other states as well allow it.
Yeah, Michigan's a great place because just being a resident, once you're here as a resident, you got your driver's license, you're allowed to grow 12 plants on your property, period. You can grow 12 plants under state law. If you're a medical card holder currently, each patient on that residency that has a card can grow 12 plants. From my understanding. So it's great. Like my wife and I, we can grow up to 24 plants in various stages, or all full budding plants. And
how many plants does a person need?
Well, it depends. We actually
his wife needs more
crops.
than him.
Yeah, because of this and that. I mean, it's a weed, but to get it to grow like you need for medicine, you have to have certain environments. You really got to take care of it almost every day, checking it, making sure there's nothing trying to attack it, doing corrective measures. So the problem that me and my wife have run into is we do so much advocacy that our plants just were neglected, and we've had to chop down just about make us cry. So many plants and just throw them away. And so people think that, oh, well, 12 plants is a lot of plants. Well, it is if you're growing all 12. Once you've gotten your environment right and you have time to grow and you've learned how to do it. But there's a learning curve. So if you got somebody who's been growing for 10 or 15 years, 12 plants is more than enough. But if you got someone like me and my wife who, we have a good crop. 1 year we had 6 out of 12 plants survive outside. We can get through not the whole year, but we can get through a good section of it. So, and it also depends on, like I said before, your nutrition and how much you need. I don't need much to get by. My wife consumes a lot more than I do to take care of all of her health conditions. Like, she was bound for a wheelchair, and she's walking, and people can't even tell that she's permanently handicapped. And her dad makes fun of her because, well, you got this permanent handicap placard. Well, yeah, because she's a fall risk. But because of cannabis, she doesn't have as many problems. She's able to move better. And like, I used to watch her. I said, oh my gosh, do you need help getting out of bed? And she's like, no, I just need to smoke a little. And what she got going. But we changed her regimen up. We refined things. And now most mornings she moves better, far better than what she did 2 years ago. So
do you microdose all day?
Well, my wife does. I take the medical marijuana usually at night to help me sleep, which corrects a whole bunch of things for me too. Sometimes I'll take some during the day if I'm overly stressed, or I'll add in. I take some herbs, which also help. I found my regimen, and cannabis is a big part of it. It's not the whole thing, but I'd say it's probably about 85 to 90% of what I need.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I need it, because you feel the pressure for the migraine, you get the irritable bowel going, you have problems breathing, and I got 4 inhalers.
So how long does it take? How long does it take for the effect? So you start feeling this stuff. How long does it take? Is this like instant? It takes 10 minutes. Takes 3 days. What? How long is that?
So there's a lot of studies on how different routes and forms of cannabis hit you, and each person's individual. For me, I can take an edible, and within 30 to 45 minutes, it's hitting me pretty good. Now, the smoking part is almost instantaneous. You get it in your lungs, it goes pretty much right to the brain, and it works. In just maybe a minute or two, you start feeling relief. I know there's a few strains I really like for my migraine headaches, which like Platinum Delight, Gorilla Glue, number 4, those things. Yeah, they hit you and they work. Now, and they relax you. So sometimes you get too relaxed. Then you need a sativa, because the sativa, we can tell a difference. And you got to play around, because some sativas or the hybrids are a little tricky. They'll put you down even though they're sativa dominant. But like I said before, you just got to figure out what works for you. And this is we're really all experimenting. It's just like in the ICU when I get a new patient, we're experimenting on them. We have ideas of where to start, and we kind of go from there. And we'll learn how to get there.
I think one of our people in the chat there has he probably noticed that Ed's taking this role seriously. He decided to, maybe he'd come on and look a little high or whatever. His nickname's Cheech, by the way. So I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, this is very interesting. I had a college friend of mine who was a pig farmer, and he grew 2 giant plants in big piles of pig manure and paid for his college. So that's how big those plants were. So I'm just saying, I mean, this was in 1980, so it was back then a little bit more likely. And then I'll tell you my smoking story. I mean, it's like I pretty much quit smoking pot in the 9th grade. So my pot career was over. So I decided.
When did it start? 5th grade?
No, probably like 8th. I don't know. I made it this summer. It was over in never mind. So I decided, they said, oh, the other kids were like growing their own plants. So I get some of these seeds, I put them in there. This thing's about that tall. And I forgot that my dad was a botany major. So he goes, he sees this little plant. Oh, for those of you who don't know what a botany major is, that's somebody who studied plants in college. So I know you know, Tiffany. You're smart. I know this panel knows, but there might be somebody out there in the audience that didn't know what that is. He comes in, he says, Johnny, what are you growing pot in your window for? I'm like, well, how'd you figure that out so fast? I'm like, oh, yeah, you're the guy that went to college for the plants. So, yeah, let's put it this way. That was and by the way, I flunked off the the freshman basketball team. End of story there. So that's my career. So hopefully I don't get nervous or anything. I have to, treat it, but I'm learning a lot tonight about these things. So, but yeah, Lucy's shaking her hand. You guys know I'm crazy. So it's just got to be, it's got to roll with it. So, all right, let's do. It's getting pretty close to the end of this hour, and I know that we got conspiracy theory coming up. So I'm going to give one person one more question, and then we'll let Jason maybe say some final words. I mean, not like you're going to die or anything, but just final words on this, and we'll see you back in another 100 episodes. Go ahead. I'm going to give it to Lucy.
Jason, if you could wave a magic wand and help the citizens here in Indiana, or maybe even self-help, what advice would you give Hoosiers who are seeking more medical freedom?
Move to Michigan. There's a lot of people who've we spent 2 years figuring that out, planning it. I've fought in Indiana so long, provide all the evidence that they need, and we can't. Holcomb agreed last session that we need a cannabis committee, advisory committee, and
where dreams go to die, a committee.
The reason that you need an advisory board committee is to regulate all the cannabis products, because they have rules and regulations, and they're not enforcing them in Indiana right now, anyways. And Governor Holcomb agreed with Representative Jake Teska and Sue Arrington that their idea of a cannabis regulatory commission and an advisory board, which reports to the governor and the Indiana General Assembly, was a good idea. That's the first thing any state or federal government should do, is have some experts to say, hey, look, this is what we know. This is what we should do. Do you have any questions? If they have questions, then they can go research it. Let the experts tell the government what they believe. With, like the Midwest Hemp Council, NORML, we have wonderful groups. Hoosier Vets for Medical Cannabis that can advise the government on what might be the best route. And they have some wonderful people in all those organizations.
If I can be Lucy for a minute. So, I mean, where's the money? Like, do you have lobbyists? Who's backing you? Until people are going, hey, I mean, like, people like to listen to people who are throwing money around, but it seems like the coalition may not be organized like that yet.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with grassroots. Grassroots, you get the votes. It looks like big cannabis money has come in to Indiana, and they created a new lobby group, and the politicians are starting to listen, because they're dumping. They dumped a couple $1 million, I believe, into this new advocacy group, so we'll see. I mean, we have a good group of Democrats and Republicans who've been working for years, and it seems like the number keeps growing of the people who are acceptable of it at the state house. And I was told by the Republicans that 2024, 2025, the federal government doesn't legalize first nationwide. We should be looking at medical marijuana in Indiana as a solid idea that should pass.
I want to make sure we get on the air, John. One last thing. Hold on just a second, Ed. I hate to interrupt you. For those of you that are listening that are dealing with cancer and are curious about whether or not marijuana will help with cancer, I want you to Google Rick Simpson oil. And Rick Simpson does not sell this oil. He just has some really great tutorials. So you'll have to get your own product, obviously. But if you're dealing with cancer, or you have a loved one who's dealing with cancer, please don't let the authoritarians kill your loved one by preventing you from taking the appropriate action. I think there are even some Rick Simpson oil Facebook groups, and also look up Phoenix Tears.
Phoenix Tears and Rick Simpson's. And Tiffany, would you add something there? Or no, Ed did.
No, Ed. Yeah. So based on everything we've talked about and your knowledge, you've been following this for a while, just send us out on a note of what for Indiana, what you see the future looks like. Because you say what people have said, this, that, and how do you see this going? What do you think the future is?
Hold on, let me rephrase that, because you're just going to give me the same question. I'm going to give each person a yes or no. In 4 years, will we have legal cannabis in Indiana? It's a yes or no answer. So Lucy says no, Ed says no. Tiffany, yes. Jason,
I lean towards yes.
I'm going to be a strong maybe. I know that wasn't one of the answers, but I'm going to go on that. So that's what we're going to do. Well,
Yeah, I think so.
Jason,
There's a lot of pressure out there. There's a lot of data that people can't dispute. So I think that, and there's enough pressure around us from other states who've done it and done it right. So I think that eventually will fall in line.
it's
I'll
sort of
tell
like
you the
riverboat
number one
gambling.
thing that influences the politicians is the votes to stay in office. If you vote them out, which a few have been voted out who were anti-cannabis since I've been advocating in Indiana, every time somebody who was anti-cannabis got voted out, that really got their attention. And the Libertarian Party this last election did a wonderful job in rallying and winning some elections at the local level, which caught a lot of attention. And I think that the Republican Party might be worried about this in the years to come.
Somebody call Kurt
I
nicely.
agree. Yeah. So, all right. Well, Jason, we always leave it optional if our guest wants to stick around for the conspiracy theory. But you're more than welcome to laugh at us, with us, or for us. I don't care what that is, but so I leave that choice to you. Or would you rather go into the night?
I'll stay.
Okay.
I'll stay.
So, well, I think, I don't know if I had this one before, but anyway, I usually try to warn my guests before I play this little clip here, but I'm sorry, Jason, you're just going to have to see it. So here you go. Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out and let's see what's going on this week. All right. I'm going to get our people up here in the right positions. There you go. Okay. All right. We got conspiracy theory. Yeah, Lucy's got special slide tonight. Hopefully I don't screw it up, but I think I can do it. So, Ed, hey, you got green foil tonight. What, it's Christmas?
Yeah.
Christmas foil? Oh, and plus, look.
No, just because of the show.
Oh, that's what your edible came in, isn't it? That you're on right now. That's what it is. And then, look, I got green. I got green for the little labels, too.
He had an Andes chocolate mint. That's what he had. He had an Andes chocolate mint.
Yeah,
I'm sticking with
what
that.
he had. Yep. Yeah, we're going to stick with
He went
that.
to Olive Garden and gave him a mint.
We're going to start with you, Ed. Do you have anything this week at all? My antennas are sad.
I just wanted to say goodbye to Coach Ken. 3 losing seasons at Navy, got booted. The winningest coach at the Naval Academy. Great respect. And, the Coach Ken, I don't think his problem was losing. Coach Ken actually came out and questioned why the Defense Department wasn't allowing Navy after COVID. They were allowing other colleges, or the Air Force Academy and the Army, to extend their players, give them an extra year of eligibility, because the NCAA had done it. But the Naval Academy was the only one that was not allowed to do it. Coach Ken spoke out about it, and it wasn't about winning. It was about speaking out, and got fired. And so come on over to Notre Dame, Coach Ken. I'd love to see you on the sideline over here as an assistant, or even as some type of assistant or something, because Coach Ken was awesome. So farewell, Coach Ken.
All right. Well, that's conspiracy facts. That's conspiracy facts. So, Tiffany, I just want to put this up here real quick. It's like a subliminal message. Okay, go ahead.
Well, after the full moon on last Wednesday, it was a very interesting 5 or 6 days. Again, still running that catch and release program. Had some people stumble in and stumble out, but we're doing what we can to track a Bigfoot and get him in the basement and chain him up. Christmas is coming. The goose is getting fat.
It'd be easy to catch this one because he's a statue, but hey, he might be for sale.
You underestimate my ability to mess stuff up.
I wonder how much that thing costs. I should have inquired inside. I think that would be fun to have that. I think it would be. So, okay, now we're going to do Lucy's, and I have to do this. Okay, so Lucy, tell me when you want me to play your video.
Well, I'm going to start with a Bible verse.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there are all different kinds of versions of, I won't say versions of the Bible, but there's all different kinds of translations. So the one that I've chosen is not the King James version. This one is called the Message. Now this is probably actually the least legitimate of all the Bible translations, because this is a guy that like literally just kind of expounded on it, but I like this one best. So if you'd like the simpler ones, you're more than welcome to do this. But this is Matthew 24:30 and 31. It says, "Then the arrival of the Son of Man, it will fill the skies. No one will miss it. Unready people all over the world, outsiders to the splendor and power, will raise a huge lament as they watch the Son of Man blazing out of heaven. At that same moment, he'll dispatch his angels with a trumpet blast summons, pulling in God's chosen from the four winds, from pole to pole." Go ahead and roll the tape.
Okay. Let's see.
Oh, we're over here now. What the fuck are you watching?
And if it were possible, says the
Okay.
Bible,
There you go.
and if it were possible, says the Bible, even the very elect shall be deceived. So my conspiracy fact for you is that the technology that you've just witnessed will cause many to believe that the second coming of man, that Jesus' literal second coming will have occurred, but in fact, it will just simply be a psyops. NASA has been working on this for years. So if you'd like to know more, you're going to look up Project Bluebeam. And Project Bluebeam is the heir to Project Blue Box back in the 50s and 60s, where they staged, with the emerging technology that's so far advanced now, where they staged UFO sightings and fireballs in the air over Washington, D.C. So our government has been planning for a long time to fool you into thinking that Jesus has come again. So when he does, I hope you can tell the difference between the reality and the conspiracy.
Wow, that may be as good as our conspiracy theory about the birds being drones.
Drones.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think you've actually done it, Lucy. I mean, you've actually done it. And when I was in Florida, we were coming back from playing golf. I look out the window and I see the SpaceX going up in the air.
Yep.
And I could sit there and I could watch it do everything. It went up, it did this little thing, and it came back down and landed. I'm like, I thought outer space was farther away than that. I didn't think I could see all that business going on up there, but it was very interesting. So I could see your point there. So my conspiracy, since we didn't get kicked off the air talking about COVID the other day, and I've noticed that YouTube has relaxed their censorship since the Elon Musk bought the Twitter. So I'm like, I'm going to go out on a limb here and tell you this conspiracy that I heard. This is about the jab. I think we still got to call it the jab. So this is what it is. Like there's one, like 3 out of every 1,000 of these jabs have something else besides that in there, and all and that makes certain people sick and certain people not. And all the politicians took sugar water. They just gave them a little sugar water in the arm, so it made it look like they were taking a
maybe
shot.
saline, maybe not sugar water, maybe saline.
Yeah, whatever. Since it's all made up.
A placebo.
Yeah, the placebo, whatever. And I think I saw one of them that they had one of those little needles that sort of disappeared and then came back out.
Oh yeah, they've already caught a lot of those on tape where they've actually given people the vaccines and they didn't take the little orange tip off of it, so they're literally like holding it up and pretending to do the vaccine, and you can zoom in and see that they didn't even take the cap off the needle. It's like, how much more of a psyops do you people wake the frick up?
It's like, well, I got to say that, maybe when Jesus comes back, he may straighten it all out, right? Or is it really him coming back? I mean, that's what now you got me curious on this thing. So,
well, we haven't even gotten into the abomination of desolation yet. The 7-year clock hasn't started ticking because the temple hasn't been erected. So if you ever want to talk like Daniel in Revelation, I'm game. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole different show. This is politics, but I guess it could be in there. So Jason, I usually offer, if you have a conspiracy you want to throw out there, you might as well ruin the rest of whatever your career is.
Well,
make sure you run the disclaimer first, Jason.
Okay, hold on a second.
I just have a feeling that the federal government just wants our tax dollars so they can play and give it to their buddies in the big corporations. I can't prove it, but it sure does feel like like they're taking all our money away and giving it to the big boys.
Hey, this is more factual than I ever thought it was going to be tonight. I mean, Ed had about a coach, Tiffany and the Bigfoot, and Lucy with a spectacular presentation.
I can't believe that Lucy didn't jump in off of what you said, Jason, and said something like the government only wants you to have what they want you to have, and they will find ways to take what is excess so that you only have the minimum to exist. Lucy?
Wow.
Yeah, we're already doing that.
As a matter of fact, Lucy.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, one of the most disturbing things that you'll see is Elon Musk versus Klaus Schwab. Maybe you've seen the meme on social media where it shows the Great Reset and Klaus Schwab's intentions right next to from Elon Musk's mouth. He's a fan of UBI. He believes that the vaccinations are effective. All of these things that completely line up. So I'm going to channel David Icke. And if you don't know who David Icke is, ICKE, best thing to do is to go see his videos with Brian Rose of London Real. So put in Brian Rose, David Icke videos on YouTube. And what David Icke says all the time is look at the outcome, and then that will tell you how they intend to get there. So if the outcome is a vaccine passport, how do you get there? If the outcome is UBI, how do you get there? And that all goes down to exactly we're watching in real time. And that's the destruction of our monetary system and cash. That's why FTX was, funneling money to the Democrats through Ukraine, is so that we could completely demolish and dissolve the current system of money. And we're then going to be told that we're going to be saved by CBDC, central bank digital currency. So your dollars, quote unquote dollars through CBDC, will be restricted based on your political beliefs and whether or not you're very compliant. Your money will expire. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And so what I'm asking all of you to do, for God's sakes, please make sure that you're buying seeds here over the wintertime. Take your front lawn, find somebody with a tiller, till it up. If they can't control you through food, it's going to be very difficult for them to control you. And your responsibility, if you're in my listening, if you're hearing what I'm saying, don't let them starve your children. Mao did it. Stalin did it. Lenin did it.
They're doing it now. There's a lot of people that aren't getting meals. So
tens and tens of millions of people have been starved, and our country already has a history of putting people in concentration camps. And those of you who don't know your history, I just ask you to, name me 3 of your favorite concentration camps by FDR. Even, oh gosh, what's the Star Trek guy? What's his name, Dorn? Not Scotty.
Taki.
Yeah, George Takei.
George Takei.
George Takei's family was. Yeah, Sulu. There we go, Sulu. George
Japanese
Takei's,
World
his
War II.
family was put in a concentration camp. In this country, we had concentration camps.
Well, that's just a great note to end the show on. That's really a positive thing. I'm waiting to get my concentration
Yay!
camp
Let me
number
wave
and
my
get in there.
flag.
Yeah, wave your flag.
And mine can't
The
be at
one
the
good
beach.
thing about Lucy is she's the lightning rod for us. When they get her, we know they're coming. So,
That's
they're coming
true.
for us next. So, but I want to see if they try to come get Lucy. I'd like to see that. That'd be an interesting. They better send an army.
No one is immune, and everybody's just here to keep our kids safe. You do whatever you do to protect your kids, right?
Yeah, that's even an evil person gives their kids good gifts, right? A little Bible scripture there. So, all right, everybody. Jason, thanks so much for being a good sport tonight. I learn more on these shows than I deserve. So, we'll, like I said, another 100 episodes. We'll have you on, and we're 2 away from our 100th episode. So we're working on a top secret guest right now, and we're going to see how that goes out. So let me make sure I play the right thing here to end this show up, and we'll see you next week. It's getting close to Christmas, New Year's, and all that. So everybody, peace out.